All right, let's get right into it. We're going to talk about one of the most famous stories ever told, a real classic tale of integrity versus temptation. It's a story about a false accusation that changes a man's life forever. But what if there's more to it? What if there are hidden clues buried just beneath the surface of the text? Well, today, we're unpacking the incredible story of Joseph.
And it starts with a question that feels so incredibly modern, right? Think about it. What do you do when the people in charge have already made up their minds about you? Just keep that question in your head, because it is the key to this entire story.
So, let's set the scene. Joseph, after being sold into slavery by his own brothers, finds himself in Egypt. But here's the thing, he's not just another slave. He's so competent, so full of character, that he has risen to this unbelievable position. He is running the entire household of Potiphar, who's a top official for the Pharaoh himself.
Listen to this quote from Joseph. It just shows you the staggering level of trust he's earned. Potiphar doesn't have to think about a single thing in his own house because Joseph is in total control of everything he owns. The stakes for Joseph, personally and professionally, could not be any higher.
And, of course, this is where the trouble starts. All of his success, his high status position, his very presence, it all catches the eye of Potiphar's wife. The text is so simple, it just says she cast her eyes upon Joseph. But man, with that one look, the stage is set, and everything is about to change.
So this isn't just some small thing. It builds into the absolute dramatic core of his story. This is way more than just a passing temptation. It's an escalating campaign of pressure that is going to completely alter the course of Joseph's life.
And look, this timeline makes it super clear this was not a one-off thing. Her request is explicit, and when he says no, she doesn't give up. The text makes a point to say day after day, which tells you this was a sustained, relentless pressure campaign designed to break him down.
And his response? It's absolutely fascinating. Joseph's refusal isn't just about, hey, you're my boss's wife, I can't do that. No, he frames it as a sin against God. It shows his moral compass is guided by something much, much higher than his job description.
And then, bam, it all comes to a head. The house is empty, she sees her opportunity, she physically grabs him by his clothes and makes her demand one more time. In a moment of pure panic and principle, Joseph has to make a split-second decision, and he just runs, leaving the one piece of evidence she needs right there in her hands.
And she doesn't miss a beat. Her reaction is instant, and it's brilliant in a terrifying kind of way. She calls in the servants and immediately flips the script, framing the Hebrew as the one who attacked her. See how she uses his identity against him? She holds up his cloak as the so-called proof, and then she just calmly waits for her husband to get home to tell him the exact same calculated lie.
So what happens? Well, the result is swift and absolutely devastating. Joseph, the man who ran everything, is thrown into the king's prison. In a showdown of his word against hers, the word of a foreign slave versus the wife of a powerful man, come on, there was only ever going to be one outcome.
But you have to wonder, how did this all go down so easily? This is where the story gets really interesting. Because if you just read the surface, you miss the genius of it. So let's bring in the commentary of Rashi, an incredible 11th century scholar who is basically a detective for the biblical text.
So check this out. The text says Joseph refused to be with her. Okay, sounds simple enough. But Rashi looks at that phrasing and says, whoa, wait a minute. He reveals this means something way deeper. Joseph wasn't just refusing her physically, he was refusing to be spiritually connected to her, to share any kind of destiny with her, even in the afterlife. It was a total rejection, body and soul.
And then there's this. The text says he came into the house one such day. Sounds totally random, right? Wrong. Rashi explains it was anything but. It was the day of a local pagan festival, a day when she knew everyone else would be out, and she pretended to be sick just so she could stay home. This wasn't a crime of passion. She engineered this whole thing. It was a premeditated trap.
And get this, the words she uses are so important. When she accuses him, she calls him the Hebrew, or Ivri. Rashi points out this literally means from the other side of the river. She is deliberately making him an outsider, weaponizing his foreignness to paint him as this dangerous foreigner, which makes her story way more believable. It's a calculated, xenophobic attack.
Okay, and this next insight from Rashi it's just chilling. The text says she told her husband things like these happened.
According to Rashi's interpretation, as she was saying this, she was physically caressing her husband, acting out on him what she claimed Joseph tried to do to her. The level of twisted manipulation is just, wow.
So there he is. Joseph's in prison, the victim of this brilliant, terrible lie. But you know what? The story's not over. Not by a long shot. In fact, this is where we really see who he is. It's all about integrity in the dark.
Even at rock bottom, in the darkest corners of the royal prison, Joseph is still Joseph. His core qualities just shine through. The text says God was with him, he earns the favor of the chief jailer, and before you know it, he's basically running the prison, just like he ran Potiphar's house. Everything he touches still succeeds.
So you want to know how much the chief jailer had to worry about with Joseph in charge? The answer is on the screen. 0. Nothing. The text says the jailer didn't supervise a single thing that was in Joseph's hands. He rebuilt that same level of absolute, total trust, even as a prisoner.
And that's really the whole point, isn't it? His integrity wasn't a performance he put on for his boss. It wasn't situational. His competence, his leadership, his character, that was his factory setting. It was just who he was, whether he was in a palace or locked away in a prison cell.
And that leaves us with this final thought, a really powerful question for all of us to think about. What is real character? Is it what you do when the spotlight's on you and everyone's watching? Or is it who you are when you're alone, when you've been wronged, and when you're locked away in the dark?